Markowitz has a complicated double award to present, and neither recipient is here, but there's a video, and it's really, really important, especially with 9/11. So I'd like to welcome Dr. Stephen Markowitz to the podium, and thanks to Dr. Flores, we were all able to get together at a dinner you had this last February. Life goes on.
So since they're not here, I understand, Linda, I get their time, right? Jackie, before there was UFT, there was UFA, Uniform Firefighters Association, and the Uniform Fire Officers Association. Phil and I met them in 1988. A somewhat diminutive firefighter, a very enthusiastic, very passionate person came to visit at Sinai. And he asked us about asbestos. He asked us do firefighters have a risk from asbestos? And Phil and I looked around and we couldn't really find much known about that. So we decided we would do a study with UFA and UFOA. And we ended up studying some 200 firefighters. We picked firefighters from parts of the city where there were warehouses and big buildings, so we knew there would be asbestos. We picked firefighters who had been firefighters for a long time, so we knew that they'd be long enough if they had been exposed, we'd find something. And in fact, we found that about 30 of the 200 firefighters that we examined, who had not otherwise been exposed to asbestos, had the typical scarring, either in the pleura or in the chest. And it was a demonstration, I think one of the first demonstrations that firefighters were at risk for asbestos exposure and the health effects. And by the way, they're exposed mostly, as Greg would tell you, that after the fire's out, and they take off their SCBA, and they go in and they put the embers out, and they have no respiratory protection. That's when they stir up the asbestos and inhale it. We didn't know, Phil and I didn't know who we were dealing with. It was a fellow named Danny DeFranco. And you don't recognize that name because you're not from the firefighter world in New York City. But Danny DeFranco, the building of the UFA on 23rd Street is named after Danny DeFranco. When you go visit there, there's a big etched in name of Danny on the front of the building because Danny was the one that brought asbestos to the UFA, UFOA, and I think probably to the international as well. He also introduced things like elephant hoses, where when the fire trucks would start up in the firehouses and give off diesel exhaust, and all the firefighters would be exposed. He had the bright idea that they should connect that to ventilation and remove the diesel exhaust so firefighters wouldn't be exposed. Well, Phil and I moved on to other things. Phil went on to found the field of pediatric environmental health, and I went on to other things, including lung cancer, inspired by David and Claudia, lung cancer screening. But the firefighters, they kept fighting on asbestos. They did so locally in New York City. They won a cancer bill later in the 90s across New York State, so that New York State firefighters would be compensated if they developed cancer. And they went on with the international to fight to eliminate asbestos exposure over the ensuing period of time. So I want to recognize them, Andrew Ansborough, who's the president of the UFA, and also James Brosey, who's the president of the UFOA, the officers. And I just want to say one last thing. So I have a 2-year-old grandson now. And I'm an occupational medicine physician, like Chris, like Jackie. And what we do is we understand what people do and what they're at risk of. So we get job titles. You give us a job title, we can probably tell you what they're exposed to, what they do, what they're exposed to, and the like. There's only one job title that my 2-year-old grandson knows. It's firefighter. Every time he comes over, we go out in the stroller and a block and a half away on 11th Street in Park Slope, we have to go visit the firehouse. And it's a good day when the doors are open and we get to see the fire trucks. And it's a so-so day when the doors remain closed. It seems to me that if you are a person, if you are a firefighter, if you have that job, and you have that kind of early admiration and understanding, that does put a special obligation on you, not only to run into buildings and save us, but also to find out other ways to protect us. And I think the UFA and UFA are doing that, and I want to thank them and thank Greg Russell as well for the IAFF. So with that, I say, let's give the tribute to Andrew and James.
Good evening. On behalf of the Uniformed Firefighters Association, I am deeply honored to accept the Tribute of Unity Award from the Asbestos Disease Awareness Organization. This award is not only a recognition of our union, but also of the extraordinary courage and sacrifice of New York City firefighters past, present, and future. On September 11, 2001, our members were front and center at the rescue and evacuation at the World Trade Center. In those hours, firefighters made split-second decisions that saved countless lives. But we also know that the dangers did not end when the towers fell. The air was thick with toxins, including asbestos. And while the world's attention moved on, our members and their families have continued to carry the weight of those exposures, facing cancers, lung disease, and too many funerals. That's why our work has never stopped. For over 2 decades, the UFA has fought for comprehensive health screenings, stronger benefits and protections, and for all those who put everything on the line. We have stood shoulder to shoulder with our brothers and sisters in the Uniformed Firefighters Association, ensuring that those who answer the call on 9/11 and those who answer it every day are not forgotten. Unity is more than a word. It's how we lead on the fire ground, how we advocate in Albany and Washington, and how we partner with organizations like the Asbestos Disease Awareness Organization to push for prevention. Every time we go to Washington to fight to secure funding for the World Trade Center healthcare program, we only get a piece. We never get it fully funded, and Washington seems to want us to come back every few years until 2090 when the program is set to expire. When we fight for safer workplaces, when we demand accountability from those who profit off deadly asbestos, we're protecting not just our members, but every community that we serve. This award reminds us that while we cannot undo the past, we can shape the future. Together, educators, medical experts, advocates, and labor can ensure that asbestos is finally banned, that exposures are prevented, and that no other families have to endure the same losses that too many of ours already have. We have thousands of people who have been diagnosed with 9/11 illnesses or cancers. Everyone has something, and that's part of the problem. On behalf of the 20,000 active and retired New York City firefighters and the families that I represent, I want to thank the Asbestos Disease Awareness Organization for 20 years of relentless advocacy and for lifting up the voices of those who are too often ignored. We are proud to stand united with you in this fight for prevention, for justice, and for the lives that can and must be saved. Thank you.